And Kim Ebert wins the door prize.
Greetings.
Hi all.
Morning, good morning.
Hello.
Give folks a couple minutes to arrive. I don't know how everyone else's weather is doing, but winter is arriving today in my corner of the world.
With it snowing?
It will be later, and probably not in the valley, but it is on the peak. They estimate it's like 16 inches or something
Oh,
on the ski hill.
Are you in Canada or where are you based?
I'm in southeast Idaho. I'm just over the state line from Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Ah,
So the elevation is high. I'm at 6,300 feet.
we are in
Um,
the midst of fall here in Prague.
yeah, your elevation is probably a tiny bit lower in most of the U.S. of course is as well, but we had our kind of like a last sunny-ish day yesterday, and then it's supposed to be pretty rainy and snowy this next couple
Time for
days.
skiing. Time to drag out the skis out of garage.
Yeah, wax them, tune the edges.
Yeah.
Yeah, with how the month's been looking, near the start of the month, I was just thinking, is it going to be another one of those Halloweens? Because I remember in the past where I'd go out trick or treating for Halloween and it was snowing.
Yeah, that's relatively common around here.
Indeed.
So there's a neighborhood down at the south end of the valley that does a trick or treating thing, and up until a year ago, there was a local lady with a really well trained horse that would ride around dressed as the headless horseman. And the well trained horse is necessary because people are wearing costumes and it's like dark and there's weird lights and stuff, so it requires like a good calm horse to pull that off without freaking out. And and that was like kind of a delight of the whole thing. She would just kind of ride around in the streets and stuff, and the horse finally got old enough that it died, and she doesn't have another one trained well enough yet to pull that off again. So we're we're hoping that it won't be too many more years before she has another one ready for the job. Just a fantastic costume, black horse. She had cool stuff to both wear and put on the horse, and it was just a really cool thing. The high tomorrow here is 33 degrees Fahrenheit with a low of 21. And then on Saturday we get down to 8 degrees as a low. So winter is definitely arriving in the mountain valleys.
You realize nobody understands those numbers.
They're freedom units there, Stephen.
Don't worry. Just instead of talking in Kelvin, we can talk in Rankine.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, I saw a good argument about why Fahrenheit's a better scale. Is that humans, we get down to freezing, but we never get up to like living conditions where water's boiling. And so having a scale that more matches the sort of the normal range that we live in makes a little bit more sense. I'm not going to wade into the units discussion, but I'm a fan of multiple units and measuring systems as they.
So
Yep.
I got to experience Canada switching, which I carried forward well, and then moved to the United States. So then I went back to Fahrenheit, then I moved back to Canada, then I moved back to the US, then I moved back to Canada. So I don't know either.
You don't have either one of them.
It's way too confusing.
So usually I find that people that don't like units don't typically understand their origin, and that's why it's so confusing. A mile I happen to really like, and you're like, why is it a mile isn't derived from anything? Well, the Romans derived it, and it's a 1,000 pace is a pace being 2 steps, and so 2,000 steps is a mile on average-ish. And I get that it's not super precise, but a whole lot of useful things are, you can kind of get an estimate of how long it's really going to be. So anyway, I will not venture into that. I got in a conversation on Twitter once, but it was really fun. Where Alex
for mentioning Rankine there is Kelvin is to Celsius as Rankine is to Fahrenheit.
Nice. I'm still thinking about that one. I got in a conversation once where we talked about units of area, and instead of an acre, they the land area was tag work, and it was defined as the amount of farming ground that a single person could work with hand tools in a single day, and that's actually a super useful measurement if you're trying to buy land and you know how many people you have or you'll need to employ. So I thought it was a cool measurement. But anyway, I'm in an area that has irrigation water and canals and stuff, and irrigation's water is measured in acre feet, which is the volume of water required to cover an acre in a foot of water is 1 acre foot. And you never normally cover it in a foot, but if you need like an inch or 3 inches or whatever, I know inches, but and you know how big your land is, then you can actually really accurately measure the water that you're actually placing on the ground. And so anyway, total diversion. I should hit record, but we're already recording and I didn't pause. So all of our pre-show banter is now in the recording for posterity. I'm sure I'll get all sorts of comments about, measurement systems, but that's okay. So welcome to today's Aries Working Group call. This is the 25th of October, 2023. We have some cool stuff, including a mentor report, which we're excited to have on the agenda today. This is a Hyperledger call, and so the antitrust policy and the code of conduct are in effect. And let's be awesome to each other, including differences of opinions about measurement systems, and not encumber our work with any antitrust policy issues. Both of those links are available in the agenda, and I will drop the agenda link again in the chat. You're welcome to add yourself to the attendees list or make any other adjustments useful to the community to the agenda at all. Is there anyone new today that would like to introduce themselves? Is there any announcements that we don't have on our list but should? Stephen, I didn't get it on the agenda, but I was hoping to have a quick readout from you on the Hyperledger Member Summit that we just pulled off the agenda. or the announcements?
Yeah, yeah, it was the summit was really good. All the members were there. There was a lot of interesting things on some of the other projects that I haven't seen, but as far as we had a good session on identity, some super interesting things coming from Hitachi. It was a kind of weird. Heather from Indicio spoke, then I spoke, and then Hitachi came in, and we were Heather and I sort of talked about, you know, where things are going and you know, in production use cases and things like that. And the gentleman from Hitachi came in and showed us a cool way to recover a key from your finger, and an interesting new ZKB that could be used in identity. So he went in a totally different direction. So that was fun. We did have I did have a few conversations about things like the use of Bezu and where it might fit in identity, and also learn from that companies like Oracle are using Aries, quietly using Aries and not really letting us know. So it was interesting to chat with the gentleman from Oracle that says, oh yeah, we're using Apify, but you know, we need it to be not, you know, we need to use it with other things other than Indy. And so, you know, looking forward to having the ledger agnostic part. So that was the session. Yeah, lots of energy and delighted to be there. And it was a beautiful sunny day, and I came home to pouring rain and cold.
So it's your fault winter's starting.
Exactly.
Thank you for that update. I was told you had beautiful slides.
Oh, I did. I had lovely slides. The BC communication team, such as Alex, helped out with that. And they were really good.
I suspected part of it might be his fault.
It was.
Good work. Excellent. Thank you, Stephen, for that readout. Any questions for Stephen? All right. Any release status or work updates that our projects want to share? Releases or major happenings? All right. On our agenda today, quick marketing update from Helen and or Alex, and then we have a mentorship review by Patrick, and he'll explain that, and there's relevant links in the discussion there. This is something that I was hoping to do last time, but it didn't happen yet, and so an open discussion about direction and energy spend within the Aries community and what we wanted to focus on. And so this is a little bit of an open thing, and I have some comments with question marks after them to try and hit that. And then a little bit later, there's in front of the quick review of the unqualified DID progress, I have an update on DID Peer 2 from Daniel, who's not here yet, but will be here later in the call. And then that's kind of the order that I structured this. Any changes we should make before we get going? All right. Helen, Alex, anything to say today?
From me, I think nothing, but Helen, how about from you?
I was also at the event yesterday with Stephen and was in some of the marketing tracks with some of the other Hyperledger members who were working on other projects. And there was a lot of interest in Aries in hearing more of the use cases, hearing more of the discussions on kind of implementations and future implementations, et cetera. And so this is another call out just to, if there's anybody on the call with anything sort of public news having to do with an Aries-based project, please reach out. I'm happy to help facilitate those introductions to the Hyperledger staff if you haven't worked with Ben and Emily, who are on the marketing and PR side there. Yeah, there's folks from Besu and Cactus and Fabric and other places that are really interested in learning more about what Aries is doing, and if there's things that their code bases could help support, and some kind of cross project intermingling that folks are interested in. So if anybody wants to learn more, please feel free to reach out, and we can have those discussions. There's also some great talk about other projects following the Aries model of having a sort of non-tech project advocate, like myself and Alex are offering, contributing to the community in our own non-technical way. So it was pretty cool. We had a big gold star from the Hyperledger staff for the way that we've been able to help promote and support the sort of marketing side of kind of business public relations side of the project. So I thought that was pretty cool. But otherwise, I think we're plugging along on getting the new logo finalized. And so again, if we showed them last time, if anybody has any questions, or anybody else on their team, perhaps, who's a graphic artist, graphic designer type branding specialist who would like to help support this effort, please have them reach out to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Also, next Tuesday is the last Tuesday of the month, so we've got the marketing meeting as well, our regular marketing meeting. So you're welcome to come along. In this link that you can see on the screen right now is the one that's in the meeting notes as well, on the 3 logo candidates that we showed you last week.
Yes. So if you're interested and want to provide feedback, please do so. Thank you to Alex and Helen for the often thankless job of making this all this stuff happen. Excellent. Thank you. And now I'd love to turn some time over to Patrick. I imagine you'll want to screen share, Patrick, for your mentorship report.
Hi. Well, I'll actually just give a brief intro for Nyan, our mentee. So just a quick intro. Not sure if any other Aries projects have previously applied for the Linux Foundation mentorship program, but I can share our experience. So we had 2 projects, 1 mentee each. They were paid to do the work, and we were communicating with these mentees on like regular basis. If you would like to apply, for them, you have ideas for projects for 2024, assuming there's going to be this program again, feel free to reach out, and I can share more detail of our experience and some tips and tricks how to go about it. And yeah, so we had 2 projects, and today I want to introduce implementation of Mediator service project, which was done by our mentee Nyan G, who's on a call today. Basically, our Aries community quietly expanded by 1 person over past 6 months. She really grew into the ecosystem, really catch up with all relevant RFCs, and just want to praise her. She challenged 2 domains at once, both Rust and SSI, so it's pretty challenging, and she did a great job. She was very active too, attending our Aries VCX calls almost every week, and yeah, I really hope that she can stay around in the SSI community after the mentorship. So just to kind of note here, as far as I know, she's open for job offers. So if you're as much impressed by her work as I am, feel free to get in touch with her. There's contact details on the wiki page. Now I'll hand over to Nyan to share some more details about her perspective of the experience.
Thank you, Patrick, for the very kind introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm here to talk about my experience working on the Mediator Service project. So I guess first we can try to see if the slides that I want to show are visible.
Yeah, we can. Yeah,
we do.
Okay. All right, so I hope my slides are visible now. So I'll get started. A mediator receives messages on behalf of others and delivers them to the intended recipient on demand. These are an integral component of the Aries ecosystem. Our goals for this project was to create a scalable and performant mediator service using Rust. We chose Rust because of its reputation for reliability, security, and performance. Additionally, we wanted to showcase Aries VCX library, and so it was important we integrated robustly into the mediator service. Lastly, we wanted to support new Aries mediation protocols such as Pickup version 2. So now that we have the goals, let's move on to our development journey. We began by choosing a web server framework. After some research, we settled on Axum. It seemed easy to use and had the backing of Tokyo, a reputable name in the Rust ecosystem. You can find more details of our decision process on the project page. Once we had the skeleton server set up, we focused on persistence. We designed a database schema to store the data and created a mediator persistence interface to implement storage methods flexibly against. This allows us to swap storage implementation without affecting the protocol logic on top. Next, we moved on to implementing the business logic of our protocols. We did this without worrying about encryption or DITCOM, keeping things simple. By doing it this way, we could focus on understanding the protocols and how they interact with the storage layer. We discovered some corner cases of the protocol at this stage, for which I have noted analysis on GitHub and linked it on the project page. Finally, we integrated the mediator service with Aries VCX encryption and DITCOM capabilities. We also added some protocol support messages directly to Aries VCX. This step was crucial in ensuring that our service could communicate effectively with the rest of the ecosystem. This internship was filled with learnings for me. I gained experience in database design, web development in Rust, and integrating modern development practices like using GitHub CI. Another exciting and challenging part for me was balancing curiosity-driven exploration and target-focused task completion. Okay, so enough talk now. Do you have something to show for it? Is there something tangible produced? Well, yes, of course. Our outputs for this project include a Rust implementation of the mediator service, test suites and CI integration to go along with it. We also contributed to Aries VCX, adding support for new mediation-related messages, and some related general improvements across the codebase. You can find all of these on the Aries VCX repo. So what's next? What does the future hold? Some possibilities include live mode support, benchmarking, and support for dead peer 4. For live mode support, I believe we could use server-sent events, which is an HTTP technology, to push updates directly to clients, bypassing some of the complications observed when working with WebSockets. Benchmarking would help us identify areas of improvement and verify performance. Supporting dead peer 4 would allow us to take advantage of the latest features in the Aries ecosystem. In conclusion, working on this project has been an incredible experience for me. I wish to thank my mentors and Patrick especially for guiding me all through it and for offering me tips in general. These organizations for funding the project and my co-mentee for discussions. Finally, I would also like to acknowledge support of the wider FOSS community and its energy and ethos that allow all of this to be possible. Thank you all for listening to me attentively. I'm happy to now answer any questions that you may have.
So this is amazing. Well done and good work. You mentioned the name of a web server. Is that a web server in Rust?
Yes, it's a web server in Rust called Axum.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's one of the most performant ones out there. I didn't mention performance of it as an advantage because almost all of the Rust web frameworks are currently very performant.
Any other questions that folks have? Thank you, Nayan, for your presentation today. Patrick, is there any other comments that you'd like to make?
Oh, I guess I think that's it. Thank
Nice
you.
work. That was awesome.
Really good. I'll mention too. Thank you, Patrick, for creating the project and acting as a mentee for Nine and her co-compatriot. The Hyperledger runs these typically during the summer season, when we're of course now coming to the end of that. But those are available in the springtime. They take proposals and then they select projects to fund, and then the money actually comes from Hyperledger to the mentor, the mentees that are chosen as part of the mentorship program. And it helps them to both get paid and to work in open source software, which is, we know, sometimes a challenge to manage both. And often those that apply are those that are in university or coming up or joining the ecosystem, and so this provides a wonderful on-ramp to do that. In past years, we have had others. I know Stephen has managed at least one in past years for those programs. And so encourage in the springtime for anyone who is willing to put a little bit of effort into it to create a proposal for a project. That's a wonderful way to add experience to people and help them get used to open source and get involved. So thank you to all involved for making that happen. Well done.
Yeah, I'll call out. This was my first experience with the mentor program this past summer, and again, to echo Patrick's words, really great experience, really good results out of it, and very happy with the results that were achieved. Yeah, highlight the program. It's really good and really helpful if you want to. If you have a good sized project, you get fantastic results.
Awesome. Can I skip out of order for a minute and do the direction and energy spend after the did peer 2 update, Daniel? Is that okay? Are you ready for me to throw you the mic?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, so to what we're doing a brief update on the did peer 2 stuff. So I have a PR open. It's linked from the agenda. I'll share my screen just to show the PR. There we go. So we've had some back and forth on this PR. This PR is proposing some corrections to the did peer 2 specification to fill some holes that were present in the original spec. To give a very brief overview of those holes, the most important ones, the most critical ones that were fixed was the consistent and defined method for determining what the key IDs should be for each verification method in the result document. There was some back and forth. There's a bunch of different ways we could have done this. Nearly all the implementations of did peer 2 have done it slightly differently. And so given that there was no, majority, I guess, in terms of the implementation, the changes here propose that we just use the simplest approach, which is just key dash n, with n being an incrementing number, starting at 1 for each key in the did. The other important change, less important than the verification methods, but still kind of a slightly undefined thing, was the naming of the services, which is following a similar pattern. And all the details are written up in the spec itself, so I won't get too deep there. I wanted to highlight what has changed since last time we talked about this, though. So previously, I had some language within the specification that outlined the expected result document and the context associated with the 825519 keys and X25519 keys. I've loosened the language a little bit on that. I've added a note to the spec that says that the exact resolved document conventionally should look like this, but it's appropriate for your implementation to resolve keys and adjust the key material to whatever representation is most comfortable for your implementation. So what I mean by that is if your code base is oriented around using JWKs, for instance, it might make sense for you to transform the key from a multi-base encoded value to a JWK instead of into the multi-base representation. And then this isn't that big of a problem, but if it was the other way around, that would also be permitted. So the note just highlights that, this is the canonical representation of the result document. However, your implementation may do whatever is most comfortable for it. It doesn't necessarily need to go into the canonical representation just to then immediately be changed to whatever is most appropriate for your implementation. The only critical piece is consistent IDs. So as long as your resolver is resolving the IDs the same way as other implementations, you should be fine. However, in that canonical representation, I have changed things. So we're using multi-key now instead of the ED25519 signature 2020, whatever the spec is. Let me show you what those changes look like in here. So instead of having a specific key type outlined in the verification method, we use multi-key as the type, and then the type of the key, the actual key itself, is defined by the multi-codec prefix on the public key multibase. Yeah, so that's the biggest change since last we spoke on this. This is now ready to be merged at this point. So this is kind of a final call for comments on this. If you have any thoughts or opinions or anything else, any issues that you'd like to bring up on this, would really appreciate your feedback now so we can get this merged soon.
Daniel, I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned the clarification of key encoding. Can you talk about what changes from a practical sense from what we're currently doing today? Does that question make sense? You're muted if you're talking.
I'm talking on mute, sorry, dang it.
Yep.
Yes, question makes sense. So what we're doing today kind of differs by implementation. But there's kind of a critical discovery that I made while scanning through the DID core specification, and that is that the public key multi-base verification material attribute inside of verification methods does not necessarily mean that the key is multi-codec prefixed. So there was, I think there's been some confusion ever since, for a long time, I'll say. DID key, for instance, will have the multi-base, the public key multi-base encoded as the multi-base multi-codec key value. That's technically incorrect based on how the DID key draft specification is written. So the multi-key stuff helps to clarify that we are expecting that multi-codec prefix to be present, and it also changes it so we're not using a redundant type specifier within the verification method body, and we're just delegating that to the multi-codec prefix.
So does this function as a clarification, or does it actually substantially change the things, or does it depend on the implementation?
So
because it was vague before.
If we'd left it as using the key types of ED25519 verification key 2020 and the corresponding X25519, we would have had to strip the multi-codec prefix from the front of the key before inserting it into the result document. And I don't think that was taking place before in most implementations. So our public key multi-base values in our resolved documents were including the 6MK for ED25519 and 6LS for the X25519. And that is technically out of spec with the DID core spec and the ED25519 verification key 2020 definition. But because this is kind of an implementation specific detail, since usually when we resolve DID Peer 2, we're doing it locally. We're not usually sharing that resolve document outside of our internal components. As long as we were handling that consistently, it didn't really matter that much. So this is more of a clarification than it is anything that substantially changes the spec itself.
So this is not something that has to be run and changed to remain in compatibility.
Right.
And the main change still remains the service numbering, which was completely ambiguous and unspecified before. And now it's specified. Yeah. Cool. So there will be some efforts to update stuff. Given that there was not a universal way of doing things, there will be some code that needs to be updated and changed in various places. It's not a large change, but it's enough of a change that that will require some effort to do, both in libraries and in implementations that where that matters, where the ID of the service endpoint matters, which is really useful. Any other comments or questions for Daniel?
That's the first time I've seen that multi-key as the type, where you put that in there. Have you seen that in, there it is, okay, right in the actual spec.
So this is the VC data integrity specification.
Oh, that's the data integrity
core spec.
Okay.
But it's out there at least, yeah. It's in the
okay.
VC thing.
Yeah. But DID key does not use it,
No.
and which would be a logical thing for it to do.
Yeah.
And it's not mentioned in the core spec, but the core spec doesn't have anything about the type. It just says you need a verification key and it's got to have a type on it so they're going to be interpreted. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's very cool. That's good researching. I'm impressed. Are we ready to merge that PR in Acapy? I just approved it.
The refactor one.
Well, related here real quick. Yeah. Stephen, you're jumping your lane here for a second.
All right.
So is anyone opposed to merging the clarifications for DID Peer 2? This is the PR on screen 62 on the DID Peer method spec. Awesome. The other thing that I should share is that Daniel Hardman had an issue where he was looking for other editors and maintainers on that spec. There are now 3, Stephen and me and Daniel. If someone is interested in being an editor there, that's of course welcome. But that way we can continue to make the progress that we need on that. So I didn't hear any objections. If you have any, please add them to that PR as soon as possible, so that we can see that, and I can not merge if there's substantial objections, and that will help us move along. Cool. So we have the next on the list is an open discussion about direction and energy spend. Last time we had a really good discussion about IW topics, including OID for VC, etc. And I could go look through the changes, but someone added this note about the EUDI compatibility and whether there's been any progress there. And I've kind of roped that together in with our IW discussions. And so what I'd love to do is have an open discussion about where folks think that as an Aries community we ought to be heading, and the energy spend or speed that we ought to be getting there. We have discussed unqualified DIDs. We're getting to the tail end of that with some, or at least the solid middle of that with implementations, working on DID Peer 4 and DID rotation, etc. And so we have definitely made progress there, but we have lightly touched on the European selected protocols, etc. And of course, this whole process kind of got started a little bit as we were discussing the next AIP, and it's been a little while since we've had that conversation. But I thought it was a good time having sort of a post-IW discussion, a reasonable checkpoint. It doesn't have to happen now, but my the point there is that this seems like a really decent time to have this conversation about where we want to focus as a community, what progress we want to make, what kind of things we want to focus on and work on, and including, of course, things that are not on this list. These are just things that sort of dumped out of my brain when I was creating the agenda. But I would really love to hear from folks about where they think we should be going and with how much energy we ought to be going there. And the floor is open. What do folks think?
I'll jump in.
Oh.
One of the things we talked about at the summit and what our push is along two lines, which is maximum privacy preserving credentials and enabling confidential conversations between peers, between parties in a trust ecosystem. In our terminology, as you know, in this working group, that essentially means a non-creds type credentials with unlinkability, with non-correlatable presentations, and then DIDCOM to enable an ongoing relationship between an organization and a person, or between people, between organizations. So those are the things that we found really important. The biggest thing I got out of I think out of the summit, from talking to others out in the community and others who didn't necessarily go to talk about Aries, but wanted to talk from our sessions, was really making that practical, making it easier and easier to get out there. So things like, getting ledger agnostic so that it can be used in a variety, so non-creds can be used in a variety of places. Being able to use DIDCOM across multiple places. We still have to do, it's likely we have to do the additional work to enable the use of the tools we provide, the Aries frameworks in OIDC scenarios, but we really want to enable easy use of DIDCOM, so that means unqualified DIDs, DID rotation, and things like that, and ledger agnostic and non-creds, being able to use it across multiple. So enabling its use across multiple ledgers and multiple mechanisms, and implementing the ones that people are interested in, and whether that's us implementing them or other organizations that come on board to enable their use in other ecosystems. But that's what I see as what our direction and energy should be on.
So I tried to summarize a little bit. Did I miss an important point there, Stephen?
No, that's great.
Cool. I didn't know how to encapsulate. I mean, because this is kind of a technical list. The overall point about enabling an ongoing relationship is sort of a meta thing, right?
Yes.
That's important. That's enabled by these technologies, and so that's important.
What I find,
I don't know. There's not like a technical item I can add here, right? Because we already kind of do that. We just need to keep doing that. That's the value.
No, we totally do it, and that's the thing is having people understand that an organization can establish a relationship with a customer and can reach out and connect in a trusted way, so that we'll send them an email and hope it triggers an action, which is less and less likely, and it is powerful. You can't, as a bank, send an SMS to a customer other than hoping they do something about it. But you can't really have a trusted message go to a person, because the spam and the phishing attacks are just overwhelming, and everyone's trained not to ignore everything inbound. But inbound is important. Organizations want to be able to tell their customers something or to reach out. And so DITCOM really enables that, and that's what we've got to get that message across and make it easy to do. So it's transitioning to be, making these things so practical to use in a broad, in a wide variety of areas.
Excellent. So I've added this to concept, and this is something we're already doing, to be clear. I just want to highlight the value of it because you brought it up.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thanks,
These
David.
are the things we're already doing.
Right. Clesio.
I have two things. I don't know if they might be too technical for this forum, but one of them is the indie method. One of the things that we're struggling is the multi-ledger support. And that also brings a question, what is the indie replacement, and do we have a way to do it in a multi-ledger way, or are we thinking about it? And the next one also related to multi-ledger and support is access to indie behind corporate firewalls. We have seen a few organizations where I forgot the name of the protocol that indie uses, but that port is not available. So is there any is that going to be addressed in the new maybe in the new indie framework? ZMQ? Yes, that's the one. So those are the two things, and I wouldn't mind having a UX lenses from the RFCs as well. So as we're looking to implementing action menu, for instance, there's no user hints. I find there's a lot of lack of metadata around the protocol, especially around UX metadata, in the sense like if I receive a action menu, there are three options. Is one of the options, for instance, for receive a credential, should the users be expecting something, or is at the end of it? So there are a few things around UX, how those protocol interact with UX. Those
Excellent.
are my 2 cents.
Thank you, Clesio. Patrick?
Am I audible?
You are.
Yeah. Just one note to the Classy's remark about accessing Ledger through ZeroMQ. So we also have this issue, and the way we are looking to address it is in Aries VCX, we have basically generalized interface for accessing Ledger, and we can use like custom transaction submitter. So we can either go natively through ZeroMQ, or we can plug in the implementation which relies on the VDR proxy. So instead we would go through, HTTP, assuming that we have access to VDR proxy, which would presumably have access to the ZeroMQ, maybe even a different VPC which is less restricted or something like that. So yeah, just my 2 cents on how we are looking to approach this issue.
Thank you, Patrick. Other thoughts?
I've got some. I think this is kind of under the umbrella of DidCombi2, but I get the feeling that as a community, we are a little dragged down by continuing to support old protocols. So I would like to see us cut off support for things like the connections protocol, for instance, which I know is still pretty widely implemented and used in the community. I think we really need to push to make sure that we're all not necessarily at the bleeding edge, but that we're finally able to put these things down and take them off life support, so we can focus our energies on like the next stuff that has all these improvements and all that.
Thank you, Daniel. Other thoughts? This is really good. Keep it rolling.
The challenge, I'm intrigued with Daniel's comment because the biggest issue with those is it's changed, but it doesn't give you all that much more functionality. It would be interesting. It might be helpful to have like a DIDCOM v2. This is why we need to go to DIDCOM v2, and here are the benefits we get out of it. I think the biggest thing is exactly what Daniel said, which is alignment, so that there's no discussion of two protocols and a V1, V2 must be better than V2, V1. But the biggest thing is, we focus on things that get us new functionality and new features and new capabilities that we can use. And those types of upgrades are more, have tended to be, even connections to out of band is not getting you all that much more. And so it's tough that it's holding us back, but I agree it is. It's just, that's why it's so much harder to get energy behind that.
Thank you, Stephen. Clesio.
One other thing that I thought, because every now and then I got people messaging me on Discord asking about like, well, what should I use for developing a wallet? Should I go Bifold, VFJ, or Swift, or Native, or VCX? I think it'd be interesting to, I don't know, keep an inventory of where the implementations are at in relation to protocols and what status and some sort of, I don't know, health checks. For instance, we're talking about DidCon v2. I don't know which implementation support v2. If you want to decommission something, we wanted to make sure that things are have been implemented before we push forward.
I think that's excellent, and I think that doing a better job supporting people when they arrive at knowing what's actually available, I think, is valuable. And what's available, what's at state, what's used widely, for example, and some sort of, I'd love some sort of metrics-based thing, but I have to think about how to do that. But I think that's a wonderful idea. It helps from a marketing perspective too. So, other thoughts? This is a super good collection. Clesio, do you have more?
Yeah, would that one maybe drive to some sort of implementation roadmap, and does that imply some close alignment with the implementers? I don't know. I'm just spitballing ideas here.
This is a spitball session. You're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that the technical oversight committee at Hyperledger decided is that we do quarterly reports, and we submit those. The first quarter, starting next year, the first quarter report is actually an annual report, if you will, where the TOC will want to see a roadmap from each project. And so that is one thing that we will have to do as a project, is sort of put together a roadmap to convey to the technical oversight committee. And I think that will be super valuable for our community as well. I think we absolutely should do that. So
I was thinking roadmap before Clesio said it, and he said it, and I was like, I should really stick it up here now. And part of it is a community roadmap on what we want to target as a community, but also implementation roadmaps would be useful to show the nuance of what various folks are adding, et cetera. So I think that's really valuable there.
Awesome. Yeah.
Really good. So we've got 6 minutes left. One of the things that I think is good, Stephen, you've asked, like, let's have a discussion about the reason and benefits, for example, for moving to DidCon v2. And I think that is a great idea to focus on that, and that will help us place it in the roadmap in the appropriate place. the hot item, of course, is the unqualified DIDs that we've been working on and making good progress towards. Real quick, does anyone have some sort of status updates on implementation of any of these related things within the code projects that they're most aware of? I know that with AFJ and Akapai, for example, there's been efforts to work with both DID Peer 4 and DID rotation. Any updates there?
That's been all Daniel on the Occupy side, so I think he's got implementations of both ready to go. From what I understand, he's got the the demos done, and I'd like to see him put in as soon as possible.
Yeah, working towards DID exchange support at the moment. Have implementations of both DID Peer 2 and 4 resolution in the works as well. And then had a draft PR that did rotation as well. So everything's kind of like half done or partially done, but moving forward at least.
Awesome. Any other updates?
So for Aries ECX, we are working on we have DID exchange open for a while, and the DID Peer 4 kind of in progress. It's triggering some changes in the refactorings, perhaps we found we might do with this. So this is on the way. We are yet looking at DIDCon v2. That's just something we are eyeing at the time, but don't have yet capacity to dedicate time to it. And yeah, also the qualified DIDs. I think that's also something that's yet ahead of us. We are not planning to implement the DID rotation protocol for now. So the parties using Aries VCX are currently not interested in that particular protocol.
Okay. I will mention one of the options, or one of the things was DID exchange with no document signature. So the idea was pull request here, and there's an issue related to it to discuss this. We discussed the need to add a version bump for the optional attribute, which I have done. This is really minor in the sense that it doesn't change what we've said before, but adds the 1.1 as a version for the DID exchange protocol that signals your capability to include the DID rotate attachment, or to process the DID rotate attachment. And it is a dot release, as that's an optional field. And so that was added per our discussion there. So what I'd love to do, I think that there some roadmap discussions would be really good, and to try and figure out kind of generally where we're trying to accomplish stuff. Both with unqualified DIDs and DIDCon v2 and a handful of these other issues. And then I think we've had these open for long enough on a variety of these things, and there have been enough implementation work done that we should probably seek as a community to get approval on the various aspects of these things, and merge them into the various places that they exist. So that we can have a fixed, unchanging target as we do that. That will result in an update to the community coordinated update to clarify the sort of the last remaining items, and then as a community we can pick deadlines that we think are reasonable to accomplish for these things, and that way we can get this done and move along, and have this not be a thing that trips us up anymore. And then it also gets us out of the way, and we can focus on the other important things that we need to move along for. So I really appreciate the discussion from everyone today, and the input. If stuff was not accurately represented here, please augment, and I will and we can incorporate that. And thanks for all the work you do. Our projects are awesome. Yeah.
Can I take a last minute?
Take a last minute.
All right. We've had an offer to do the Please Act implementation in Akapai, and I've been having a discussion with Alexander. He presented last week. the fundamental question we've come down to, and I'd like to give people homework to take a look at. The Please Act protocol does not really say whether the a requested act for outcome. So Please Act allows you to say, send me an act when you are done either receiving the message, so as soon as you receive it, or on outcome, on completion of. And the question is the Please Act intended to be on the message or intended to be on the protocol? So when I say Please Act outcome, do I mean this specific message that I just sent or the protocol? The problem with the spec as it's written today is A, it doesn't say that clearly, and B, all the examples are on the last message of the protocol. It's attached to the last message of the protocol. So it, again, doesn't really answer that question. So we now have that question and we'd like to get it clarified. That's the homework for next week. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thanks all. And that'll be a great topic for next week. We will see you all later.
Bye.
Thank you.